Hi, my name's Dee, your Professor of Woo Woo, and welcome back to Sunchild Tarot and our now traditional look at the lunations. I have with me astrologer David Fischer. Oh, yeah, I got it to the right side this time. How are you doing, David?
I'm good, thank you, Dee. So
So
let's dive
it looks
right into
good.
it.
This new moon,
Sorry?
this full moon, sorry. Looks full
Yeah,
of action and promise.
as you can see, it's a full moon in Aries, and we have a few planets piled up here, and you have a couple of other planets being very strong here. So there are quite a lot of details to this that we are going to discuss today. Well, as you said, there's a lot of action in this full moon, but I would advise everyone to really think about the actions that are being taken, because you have some fire in the chart, but it's the moon and Venus, which are more receptive planets, and the more active planets are in air signs ruled by these receptive by this receptive planet and Saturn that's just stationed direct. So move slowly, tread lightly. Tread lightly. Is that how you say it? Tread
Yeah,
lightly.
tread lightly.
Tread lightly. Okay. There are some expressions that I'm not really used to, but you have the influence of these dry planets still here in Libra, wanting to move on, wanting to have more influence and more say in matters. Meaning, you want to be. This is the Sun and Mars, so you want to be sure of what you're doing. You want to be sure you're picking the right side, so to say. But right now, with Venus in Sagittarius, you might be just wishful thinking too much and being too negligent of the real work that you need to do here with Saturn. Of course, some people that have already got some planets in these areas, some good planets, some planets that are strong, meaning in their own signs, direct, visible in the sky when you were born in your natal chart. If your planets are well placed like that or angular, then you're going to have an easier time perhaps because you have been using that energy, working with that in a specific area of your life for a long time now. But if you don't have any planets in these areas, it might be a little difficult for you to really look into what's bothering you, and you might be trying to focus too much in the Sagittarius area of your chart. Let's remember that Jupiter is stationing direct right now, is still moving slowly, but now we feel like we have the whole picture. Now we feel like we have the whole information, and we might just have the whole information, the whole picture of the thing in our heads. But there is still more to happen. There's still a few more elements to this story to play out that might just make you a bit more frustrated or feel like you're going to lose things. Don't trust that feeling. Don't be afraid of losing whatever you got your sight upon right now, because you don't. You have to be more. You have to be assertive, but you still have to move slowly. You still have to kind of look where you're stepping.
And there's an element of making sure you've got your facts right, as you said, with the Sagittarius action implying that, all right, I know all the ins and outs now, you know, but
Yeah.
Mars wants to do things. And as you say, there's no earth, there's no water.
Yeah.
So there's no practicality, there's no compassion or empathy, so to speak.
Yes, kind of. You have those things obviously, because no, you don't lose your habits. You don't lose your routine just because there's no Earth in the sky, and you still have Uranus and Pluto there. So the thing about uh, the thing about not having these elements manifesting through these planets in certain areas of our life is that we just do what we're used to doing, or what we have been doing for the past few months, or what we have idealized now as the new, because Mercury just stationed direct, we might have just come up with this new idea of how things should be done. And then we just go about applying certain ideas without thinking of how that's going to impact our bodies, of how that's going to impact our routines in a more practical sense, you know? For instance, moving into another place when you don't know anyone there, just because you felt uncomfortable in the previous place, you say, okay, I need to move. And then you move into this other place that is totally unfamiliar to you, where you don't know anyone, and you don't have and you didn't research how you were going to keep yourself comfortable there in the long run. Well, if you do that, then you're going to have to re-examine later on where you went wrong, how your routine was not factored into the whole plan that you were looking into, just because you were being driven by this need, this overwhelming need to fulfill that desire. And this again comes from the dissatisfaction that our previous models have brought us, and that's from Uranus and Pluto in the Earth signs. And together with Neptune, they are making us aware of how these structures of Earth, the power structures, the institutions of Capricorn, and the social norms of Taurus, have been really leading us to illusion in Pisces, that Neptune retrograde in Pisces. How those and how those illusions have fueled our desire for an action that was not based on thought out process, you know? So ideals are fine, but you have to feel the path as you go through it. Meaning, once the sun steps into Scorpio, we are going to start feeling the reflection, the reaction to our actions in Libra. We are going to start seeing how our ideals and what we focused on in Libra, focusing on our desires, ignored perhaps this Martian side. We're going to start, because Mars is coming out of the rays of the sun as well, we are going to start seeing where we let ourselves down in those plans, you know, because the planning is going very well, but once it starts getting more real, you're going to start feeling in your body the consequences of the new routine, of the moving forward with what was idealized. So that's good, because it's going to happen almost immediately after this full moon, which to me determines the first kind of action. So if in the moving example, moving to another city, it's going to be when you hire the truck to get your stuff from your home into the other one, or you close the deal for the home, you know, you rent your home, you make the first payment, or whatever is the action that you're taking to materialize that thing. The moon is going to be this need to act. I would say think before you act, and I would say even if you think that the best course of action is just see how everything you have done so far played out, do that. Just sit down with yourself and analyze your action up until this point. That's going to be paying homage to the moon being in Aries, and also to Mars being debilitated, because you choose not to act consciously as the best course of action, or to act in a more harmonious way, not doing everything at once, not trying to get all your desires at once. That's Venus in Sagittarius, with Jupiter very loud in the sky right now. And you might just see how clear your own desires and your own actions, where they're taking you, will be made for you if you just, you know, stop and think about it. Saturn stationing direct is also a good time to name your demons, or put limits around what you really want and how you're going to get there. and honoring Saturn while everything is in its exaltation and domicile is a very good idea, I would tell you. So how you have to pay attention. That's something I always tell people. You have to pay attention to the dignities of the planets in the sky right now. If there is a planet that seems to be ruling everything else, like Saturn is right now, because it's ruling by exaltation Mars, the Sun, and Mercury, and Jupiter by domicile, and it's in its own house. When the planet is that powerful, you have to honor its significations most of all. It's like if you do that ritual of that planet in that particular time, then all of the others are going to follow suit in a more harmonious way, because they're going to be given, they're going to be fed the proper information or the proper resource to be able to deal with whatever debilitation they're facing in those signs, because the Sun and Mars, they're both debilitated in Libra, and the Sun is also debilitated in Aquarius. So right now, acting too hastily, like hot and dry action like the Sun and Mars, is not favored. Whereas having a more Saturnian flow to the events in your life, having a more Saturnian course of action could be considered the better choice. Sorry, I'm losing my words today.
As we were discussing beforehand, though, there's also the aspect of Saturn being fear and Jupiter making that message bigger.
Yes, if you are someone who's not used to deal with Saturnian matters, meaning you're not used to giving Saturn its proper rituals because you're always acting hastily. Let's say you have Saturn in Aries, the people born between 96 and 98 or 99, I think. You have this way of not waiting for things to grow the way they should, or for trying to go for what's easiest according to your vision without having the proper information, just because you want that and you want it now. And so you're also used to seeing frustration, to being frustrated, and you might be just fearful now because you think you're going to lose everything if you don't act now. And it might just be that call to action that always leads you to the mistake. But and with Saturn being so loud right now, what's being emphasized is your need for proper grounding, for proper limitation. When I say limitation, is you're putting boundaries around a certain thought, and you're saying this goes here, this has this particular purpose, and does that in this particular manner
and doesn't
ritual.
Need to be doing it anywhere else.
Yes, and that brings you a certain type of relaxation, a certain type of confidence that you don't get from anything else but grounding, but having those certainties to act on your own faith. With Jupiter there in Saturnian signs, it just means that to be able to have faith on your own actions and not be fearful, not be acting on fear, but rather in love, you have to consider Saturn above all. You have to pay honors to Saturn. And so when you do, you're going to see this strengthening of your faith on your course of action that you've chosen. So for people who have a lot of Earth in their birth charts natally, I would say that this is being easy because we are naturally grounded. We are naturally trying to take everything one step at a time, and we are naturally fearful of going off the road. But in this case, we are seeing the path opening up now that we have done our grounding, to just take what we wish, because we see the clear path thanks to our grounding abilities, to our capabilities of limiting our course of action to what's more clear ahead of us.
Now, I want to back some of that up because I also want to remind us about, it was the last new moon where we talked about the dangers of doubling down. So as ever, there's two paths that this chart can take, because either you didn't double down last time and you went, no, I need to think about this, I need to work it out, or you did. And I'm a little concerned about the ones that did double down, because there are temptations to act in this particular chart that promise to have long-term results and not all for the better. There's so Mars is ruling this full moon, with the moon being in Aries, and as we know, Mars is debilitated. It's as furthest away from its home it can be. Now, at 23 degrees Libra, you may want to, if you could just give me the screen a second. At 22 degrees Libra, the degree is ruled by the angel Mizrael or Mizrael. Will that focus? Yes, I think it was. Now, Mizrael is pretty much, let me see so you can see me at the same time. Mizrael is about deliverance from persecution, self-atonement and deliverance from persecution. That is within the arc of the angel Hahael, which I hope I just pronounced that. I think I stumbled over that a little bit, but now one of Hahael's attributes is that sense of mission. So, of course, Mars is there going, okay, we've got to do something. I can see this mission. I can see we need to help those people, whoever those people are. But looking at how the where the moon is, it is by degree ruled by Sihaya, who is very much the one that promises the longevity of any actions taken under this time. But Lelahel is ruling that 5-degree equinox, who represents very much the light of understanding. So it's really saying, make sure you understand what you are going to do before you do it, because the effects of this are gonna last. And then finally, so right next to Mars, we have the sun, we have the other half of the full moon. And that is, that's interesting because it's talking about, it's ruled by degree by Mehiel, and then by the 5-degree arc by Michael. Now, Michael represents political authority. So there's this emphasis on those in power, whether that means in terms of government or the workplace or just in the home, because unless you're very lucky, there always seems to be one person who takes a Saturnian rule of making sure that everything gets done. That's not always the person who appears to be in charge. You know, so there's that dichotomy to start off with. But the sun is saying, no, we have to protect ourselves from our enemies, from our adversaries. Well, actually, adversaries, rabies, and wild beasts, but I'm not going to worry about the last two. There's going to be an urge to protect ourselves from something or other. Now, what is really interesting about this full moon chart is that there are no what I call angelic aspects. There's no planet that is at one angel's degree and another planet is in that same angel's 5-degree equinox. So I see that as, you know, you can see the evidence of the angel's action in the chart there. None of those whatsoever. What is interesting is that there are 3 demonic or goetic aspects, which the primary one, I'm going to start with the moon. So the moon is by night, and all of these goetic aspects are by night, which is really interesting. So we're looking at where I am, the moon's in the middle of the day, 3 in the afternoon-ish. But looking at the area covered by night, we've got the moon by night aspect Mercury in Malthus's rulership or quinance. Now they're opposite one another by signs, so there's that tension there. And Malthus's planets are Mercury and Saturn. So there's we've already said how strong Saturn is here. So Malthus is one of his qualities is can bring to thy knowledge enemies' desires and thoughts and what they have done. Remember that one. So there's that act of revelation there of what your enemies are up to. And another aspect is Venus and Saturn, that they're just loosely sextile to one another, but this is ruled Venus by night and Saturn in the quinance by the Goetic spirit Valak or Valax, Valu. Now, his office is to give true answers of hidden treasures and to tell where serpents may be seen. Now, that can be two things. That can be going, here's wisdom, or here's those who speak with forked tongue. So that there's quite that different two ways of looking at that. So I'm worried about what information is going to come to the surface, who is going to look like the aggressor, may not be the aggressor. The revelations, just because there's information come out, doesn't mean that all the information comes out. With just those two aspects alone, and the chart with what we've discussed already, gives the illusion of a PR job occurring, or a little bit of propaganda, or a little bit of bias, or a little bit of getting the wrong end of the stick and not knowing all the facts and running with only half a football instead of a proper full football, and you're not going to score a goal with half a football. Now there's this final goetic aspect, which is in the always happy, never calamitous, never any reason to worry about whatsoever partnership of Mars and Uranus. Now, this is Uranus by night and Mars by arc, and this is being ruled by the Goetic spirit Focalor, or as many people will also know him, Lucifuge Rothakal. Now, his office is, and I'll quote this directly from the Megaton. I almost didn't stumble over that word. His office is to slay men and to drown them in the waters and to overthrow ships of war, for he hath power over both wind and seas. So there's this revelation that comes out that looks like it's an excuse for some form of action. And I wouldn't be just on the basis of those three things. If I pulled those three things, never mind that it's connected to the chart. If I was told those three things and looking at it on a global mundane, I would say that on the night side of the planet during the full moon, although not during the full moon period, because we're talking at least 2 weeks until the new moon, but the part of the planet that is covered in darkness when the full moon happens, there may be some rather sudden confrontation that's likely to be on water, where there's someone's believing they're protecting somebody else, and that's maybe not entirely the truth. So again, there's that can be related symbolically to your own life, water being emotion. Are you jumping into to protect somebody, but you've got the wrong end of the stick? But whatever you do there, it's going to have a long-term effect. So you need to make sure that not just the facts that you have are right, but that you actually have all of the facts. Because it's no good being right about 50% of it if the other 50% is something that would challenge that. Now, what do you see that? Would you say that's reflected in the chart on a planetary level?
Yes, I really love everything that you were saying, because it reflects perfectly how careful you have to be about the choices that you're making given the information that you have, because Saturn is still moving slowly again, as I said. So we still have to validate, now that Saturn is direct, all of these new thoughts, all of these new ideas that came into our heads about what we should do. I was thinking as you were saying about this Mars here, because we were talking about angels, demons, and all of these things, and I remember that there is a fixed star right here, I think at 24 Libra, which is Speaker. That
Right. Yeah.
star, that star is a more benefic
I was gonna
influence. It
say that's
gives you.
good fortune, isn't it, speaker? To a certain
Yes,
extent.
but I think it relates particularly to what you were saying about there is some revealing of what an enemy thinks, by some action they take. They let you know what's really going on in the backstage. And what I mean by this is that even though Speaker is not also visible right now because the sun is very close to it, um, you still have that light of that star supporting Mars. So since it's a more benefic influence and it helps you know things, it helps you understand things consciously better, we will see this detriment image of Mars, which means some action that fails to deliver it's like a failing to harmonize, because that's Libra. It's an attempt to break with some tradition that is normative, and it's trying to it's oppressing people and things like that. And it's a failure of that previous system that becomes more clear. And I think that's just going to help people to limit really the idea of, around what they're trying to do and why. Another thing that was coming up is that that's going to come through friendships, because you have Venus being the ruler of all of this, you have Mercury here. And so a lot of friendships right now and personal dynamics, such as, intimate relationships, if you have a boyfriend, if you have a girlfriend, if you have that significant other person, um, those are the relationships, those are the people that are going to be motivating you to action the most.
Yeah.
That are going to be pushing you towards that decision. And you have to be very careful. You have to be on your own pace. You shouldn't move too fast. And if you are given the opportunity to postpone a few decisions or to make one at a time in a pace that you feel more comfortable with so you can process the information, then do that, because, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saying we don't have enough information right now, because going to that Mars and Speaker, I've got two things. The first thing I was thinking with what you were saying is, although it's backed up by what I was saying with the angels, that sense of needing a mission and needing to protect somebody, because that's what Mars likes to do in Libra, is take action on behalf of itself and others.
Mhm.
But it reminded me of, if you remember the Scooby-Doo cartoons,
Mhm.
Scrappy-Doo, with that whole let me at him, let me at him, let me at him. And there
Mhm.
needs to be somebody with their hand on Scrappy-Doo's collar to make sure that he doesn't go and do something stupid.
Yeah.
Because there is an invitation now. You might blow me out of the water with this one, but I've been thinking about Speaker on and off, because it's this is not the first time it's popped up in recent charts, is it? So um, when I saw that for the moon, see higher representing longevity, if we think Speaker is the start of the sidereal zodiac, Sun opposition Speaker is how that particular news cycle starts. So with Sihaya here offering that longevity, we have the opportunity here to start a new cycle by an ill-advised action. Would you follow with that?
Hmm.
Because that's what, like I say, Mars is doing that Scrappy-Doo thing. Let me at them, let me at them.
Yes. It would. It would be an ill-advised action, but for those of you who have been doing the Saturnian work, you are going to feel like, wait, that advice is just leading me to discomfort because it's not safe. It's something that I cannot see how
Yeah.
grounded I'm going to be once I go in that direction, and it's going to be made obvious to you if you are well grounded. But for those who have a lot of fire and air in their charts and are not very used to Saturnian matters, they're going to find it very difficult to grapple with that feeling of, oh, should I do what's safer because they have been given the information of what could be safer for them, or should I go with my usual flow of I know what's best for me? And they're probably going to go with what's best for me because we need those people. Karma does that.
So in a way, that depends on, again, that doubling down decision of, am I reconsidering everything, or am I just going to double down that the new moon offered us? Here, the double downers are likely to go off on one, and the ones that have gone, whoa, hang on a minute, are being made sort of comfortable because they still have the freedom to keep saying, well, hang on a minute.
Yes, when you say hang on a minute, that's when the clarity comes. And this is where the true focus is shown to you, because then you realize, you're like, wait a minute, that's not safe. That's not what I wanted. Now I know how to act. Now I know which direction I want to go because I have considered what I don't want. And that's honoring Saturn. Because when you are focusing with the sun, you are excluding everything else in detriment. It's in detriment of everything else that is not that which you are focusing your conscious attention on.
Yeah.
But when you do the Saturnian work, you are kind of focusing on something by paying attention to everything that's not that particular thing. And thus you care for it in a way. That's the kind of care that Saturn provides. And right now, that kind of care is what brings you more clarity. That kind of, hang on a minute, I have to do my Saturnian matter and my Saturnian work and consider this proposition, consider this particular offer as something unsafe, because it is, because I haven't planned around it, because it's not grounded, because all of these other factors that could affect my focus if I go for this ideal. So because of all of that, I am caring for my own future, and I am caring for my plans, for my safety, by honoring all of these other side things.
What is really interesting, I just nipped and had a look at the Sabian symbol for this full moon, with what we was talking about the political authority, or the being led by a partner, or by a public mood, or by what information you have and have not got. Now, the full moon 27 Aries is a large audience confronts the performer who disappointed its expectations. So there's that sense of promise, and that sense of that that's performer amazing. Is the Scrappy-Doo going, let me at him, let me at him, I've got to go and do that thing. And the audience, if that occurs, the audience gets to go, yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, it's like Trump. It's like Trump coming out of the presidency, that fiasco of a scene that he made, trying to call, I'm not going to get into this matters, what happened. But yeah, that's the scene, that's the show that we're going to kind of have in this lunation. I think we're going to see some prominent masculine figures doing that kind of show.
And in a way, although this probably doesn't sound good for everybody who's listening, I hope that what I saw in those goetic aspects is more on a personal level, that you can step back and not take their invitation, than actually seeing it on a mundane level. Because on the mundane worldly level, on the political stage, because that will be quite dangerous on the political stage. That will mean people dying. So that's not a most positive way of looking at this. So whatever we do, think before we act for the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months.
Yeah, I would say we are in a little bit of danger of putting your horses in front of the carriage if you are acting up if you are acting too much until Mars gets into Scorpio, because then we can trust what we are doing without having to overthink it.
So Mars is going to be happier in Scorpio, obviously, because it rules it. Does it mean
Yes.
it's going to just be more effective with what it does, or does that mean it's going to also be more sensible with what it does?
Both.
Because if Mars goes into Scorpio, that could easily be Scrappy-Doo's collar snapping and he's whoosh gone. Or is it Scrappy-Doo going, right, I have the ability to do things here now. What do I do?
Well, if you have given your enemies power with your choices while Mars was in Libra, now that Mars has power, your enemies are, going to show you their true nature and what they actually meant, and you're going to be left frustrated. You're going to be left, trying to. You're going to be left doing the Mars thing. Then you're going to have to just assert yourself to fix whatever problems you made, whatever happened, with the bad choice that you made. But yeah, I think it's going to be also making people more sensible to how they're going about their business, how they are asserting themselves. They're going to be more conservative. They're going to be less hasty, and all those things.
And there's an element of, because I've just realized the moon is in the decan of the Four of Wands. Now, that for me, as well as it can be a celebration, it's also tying the knot, a form of commitment, walking through to a new realm through agreement, through contract. So again, there's that sense of you need to be careful what you are signing yourself up for, because again, that's emphasizing that longevity aspect that Sihaya was offering.
And especially with all these retrograde planets just turning direct, we are beginning what we are going to revise in the next cycles of the retrogrades to come next year. So be sure to start doing things that you are. Yeah, be sure to tread lightly. Just make yourself aware of the path that you're taking.
Because one image that just struck me then with everything that we were saying, it's almost like that point on a roller coaster where you've gone up and you're just on that top at the moment, just before it starts shooting right down. Just before all the direct planets start really building up their speed and forward motion. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it would, because you realize everything that when they're stationing. Yeah, it's a good analogy, because when you're going up in a roller coaster, you don't really see everything that's around you, and you're kind of anticipating getting to that top. And when you get there, you just see everything. You see everything around you, and it's beautiful. And for a moment, you forget that you're about to, death drop or
Plummet
something.
900 foot back down towards the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and once the fall starts, that's all you can focus on, and you're just taken. But that moment up there is what you remember, is what sticks to your memory. And this is right now that moment where you have to look around you to stick to your memory the things that are important moving forward, with the momentum that we're getting.
That looks like a really good place to, because we have just spent 5 minutes at least saying the same thing as what we'd already said, haven't we?
Yes.
So, would you say that's a good place to call this to a close?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so where can people find you, David?
So my website is still the same. In the first place, astrology.com. There you'll find links to my Instagram and to my Facebook. There is a YouTube channel, which I haven't updated yet, but I will soon enough. Just keep an eye out for it. And that's it.
Right. Details, as ever, will be down in the description down below. There's a link to the Facebook page for this channel as well. And so, yeah, like, share, subscribe. all of the good stuff. You don't have to think about that one first. Subscribing here is a good thing. It's a long-term thing. You will benefit from this. Subscribe to the channel. But there is, other than that, good luck, everyone. Just make sure you think before you act. I mean, think about it. Do you really want to be Scrappy-Doo when you grow up? Okay. See you later.
See you.